Hey there nation, welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander Cheapskate, and we are back with another episode of the Quarantine Chronicles. This is Kill Team Battle Report number 6. It is a Feint scenario that was fought between the 15 Fangs of the World Eaters versus the Shrieking Masquerade of the Emperor's Children. So this is our 6th game, as well as the final game of our 3rd round of our solo Kill Team campaign. And in case you're wondering why we're doing a solo game where I'm just fighting against myself, the reason why is because of the COVID-19 pandemic. I really don't feel comfortable asking my friends to risk themselves to come to my place so that way we can play some war games to make videos, reports. It just seems very irresponsible, especially since they got like family members that they worry about. So because then I'm asking them to stay at home, and I'm staying at home by myself, and so I'm making this kind of content to like entertain people and at the same time keep my sanity while we go on with this coronavirus quarantine. So that being said, real quick, we're gonna play some background music real fast. If you want to see exactly what we're bringing for this one, go to pause, take a look at your own leisure. So with that being said, let's get this battle report on a roll.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, dying times here.
Alright, so the mission for this one is Feint. So basically the idea is that both sides have 3 different objective markers. The 15 Fangs, their objective markers represented by those 3 barrels on the left-hand side, while for the Shrieking Masquerade, it's those 3 crates on the right-hand side as well. Pretty much you earn victory points for putting fighters out of action, as well as for taking out different objectives as well. And that's pretty much how the mission is kind of set up. As you can see, the 15 Fangs of the World Eaters are located on the left-hand side, while the Shrieking Masquerade are located on the right-hand side. So with the mission briefing over, let's go and talk about deployment real quick. Alright, so starting with the 15 Fangs, in the bottom area of the deployment, we have the Khorne Berserkers for the most part. Up on the top, we have, what's his name? Konarek Thaxos is his name. He is a Khorne Berserker's armed with a bolt pistol. He has a chain axe as well as frag and crack grenades. He's also packing an Icon of Wrath. Right next to him below him is Leovine Ukris, the Master of Executioners. He's armed with the Axe of Dismemberment, a bolt pistol, frag and crack grenades. He's also got the Strength Specialist. He's also the commander for this for this kill team. Right after him, we have Lerak Kord, who is a Berserker Destroyer. Who's armed with plasma pistols. He's got a chain axe, frag and crack grenades, as well as a Mark of Khorne. He's also the kill team's combat specialist. Right beneath him is Ugrivian the Destroyer, who is a Berserker champion. He's armed with a combo plasma, chain axe, frag and crack grenades, also the leader specialist. And then finally we have Garax the Butcher, which is another Khorne Berserker armed with a bolt pistol and chain axe. He's got frag and crack grenades. He's also got the Mark of Khorne. And that pretty much makes a deployment here in the bottom for the 15 Fangs. And finally, on the top half of the deployment zone, we have a 5-man unit of Bloodletters. Up in the top left, that is Onyx Rider. He is a Bloodletter armed with a Hellblade. After him comes Enzel the Night Reaper, who is a Blood Reaper. He's also got a Hellblade. Right in the center there, we have Gaze of Death. He is the unit's Icon Bearer. He's got an Icon of Khorne as well as a Hellblade. Right beneath him is the Skull Collector, which is a Bloodletter Hornblower. He's got a Hellblade as well as Instrument Chaos. And last in the bottom, we have the Rage Reaver, which is another Bloodletter. And that pretty much makes a deployment for the top half of the 15 Fangs. Meanwhile, across the battlefield is the Shrieking Masquerade on the top of the deployment zone. Starting from the top, that is Zakir Canislar. He is a Chaos Space Marine gunner armed with a heavy bolter. He's got a bolt pistol frag grenade. He's also the team's heavy specialist. Right next to him is Zandyar the Black, which is a Chaos Space Marine armed with bolt gun, bolt pistol, as well as a frag grenade and crack grenades. Right beneath them on the bottom, that is Naxos Faith Slayer. He is a Chaos Space Marine gunner who's armed with plasma gun and bolt pistol, as well as frag and crack grenades. And right beneath him is Zaydu Vorlas, which is the aspiring champion. He's got a plasma pistol, power fist, frag and crack grenades. He's also the leader specialist for this kill team as well. And the center deployment for the Shrieking Masquerade, up on the top with the red hood, that is Tristle. He is a Chaos Cultist armed with an auto pistol, as well as brutal close combat weapon. Right behind him is Telos the Perfect, who's a Possess armed with horrifying mutations. He's also the combat specialist for this kill team. Right in the center, that is K-Fax. He is a Chaos Cultist champion armed with a shotgun. And right beneath him is Ashrock the Mad, another Possess with the horrifying mutations. He's also the Zealot specialist for this kill team. And last, we have Trestle there on the left, who's another we have Fabian, on the left. left, he's a Chaos Cultist armed with an auto pistol. He's also got a brutal assault weapon and a Mark of Chaos Slanesh. And then right behind them is Telemac and Laris, the Master of Possessions. He's got a bolt pistol, frag, and crack grenades, as well as a force stave. He's also got the Psyker specialism, and he's also the commander for this kill team. And finally, at the top of this little structure here, we have the last three members of the kill team. These are all three Chaos Cultists. On the top, we have Jaco. He's a Chaos Cultist gunner armed with a heavy stubber. Right next to him is Renko, who is a Chaos Cultist gunner armed with a flamer. And lastly, we have Thess, which is a Chaos Cultist armed with an autogun. And that pretty much makes up the deployment for the Shrieking Masquerade. So with deployment over with, we go directly to the top of turn number 1, and both the Shrieking Masquerade as well as the 15 Fangs roll off for initiative to see who will be going first. Alright, so that takes us directly to the top of turn number 1 after the move phase, and the World Eaters get to go first. They get the initiative on this turn, and this photo is taken after the move phase. And as you can see, nothing but charges for days basically takes over here for the most part. Basically, I've been rolling a lot of 1s, 2s, and 3s for a lot of the rolling that I've been doing for this campaign so far, and for whatever reason, this battle report, all the 5s and 6s basically came out to play for once, because charges went off non-stop for the World Eaters in this one. So as you can see up here, we have Leorvine Ukris managed to charge directly to the top of the structure where the Chaos Cults is located at. Same thing with some more of two more of his Khorne Berserkers as well. They also engage with targets in the center of the battlefield, and at the same time also on the top there with his Bloodletters going directly up into the Space Marines up there on the top. To make matters worse, when Leorvine Ukris charges into that mob of Chaos Cultists, he uses the Body Slam ability is what he ends up doing, which is with one of the Strength Specialists. He rolls a d6 for each fighter within 1 inch, and if he rolls a 6, they get a mortal wound, and all 3 Chaos Cultists rolled 3 6s, and all 3 of them rolled out of action results, and all 3 of them are dead and out of action as the opening salvos of the turn, which is absolutely insane. At the same time, when it came from the next side for the Shrieking Masquerade, they of course countercharge. We have Telos the Perfect as well as Ashrok the Mad charging into Chaos Berserkers. We also got Chaos Space Marines mixing it with Bloodletters on the top. All kinds of craziness took place during this turn. It was absolutely insane. And to make things also kind of interesting, Tristle as well as Fabian, they kind of bypass all the charges and they advance all the way across the battlefield, heading directly into the World Eaters territory, getting ready to take out their very first objective marker if they're lucky. So here's a close-up move phase here in the bottom of the screen. As you can see, Leorvine Ukris actually originally charged into Jago originally, but because he uses Body Slam ability, he managed to hit Thest as well as Renko with that Body Slam. Managed to kill all 3 guys with mortal wounds at the same time, which is actually kind of crazy because the Grivian actually charged directly into Thest as well, but because Thest is now dead, being taken out with a Body Slam, not much has really happened there. As you can see there, Garax the Butcher is also on top of there as well, helping him out. And so that part was absolutely insane. Rolled 3 6s for those guys, and all 3 of those guys went out of action, which is absolutely fantastic for the 15 Fangs. And here's a close to the middle of the table. As you can see, Conrad Thaxos originally charges directly into Fabian, which is actually one of the Chaos Cultists. Managed to get that guy engaged in close combat. He also gets countercharged, of course, by Telos the Perfect as well as Ashrok the Mad, so that part is kind of crazy. So I'm pretty excited to see exactly how combat goes here in the center of the table. And here's a close-up of the top of the table where you can see that the Bloodletters have basically started mixing it up with some members of the Chaos Space Marines up there in the top, which will be actually kind of interesting to see exactly how these guys hold out in close combat, because traditionally Bloodletters have not been very good this campaign, but then again, I rolled a bunch of 5s and 6s earlier, so who knows what will happen. This game is off the chain so far. And finally, here's a close-up. As you can see here, the other members of the Chaos Cultists, we have K-Fax as well as Tristle. They're making their way as quick as they possibly can across the battlefield in order to make their way to the objective marker in the 15 Fangs territory. So with the move phase over with, we go directly to the psychic phase for the Shrieking Masquerade. So originally, what ended up happening is that Telemac and Laris tried to cast Cursed Earth as we tried to do, but unfortunately for him though, when he rolled for his value, he rolled double 6s and triggered the Perils of the Warp, managed to put 3 mortal wounds on himself as well. He's actually just 1 wound away from actually kicking it, which is absolutely insane as well. And to make matters worse, when he tries to cast Psybolt, he rolls like a 3, so because of that, he wasn't able to get the Psybolt ability off either, so things are not looking very good right now for Telemac and Laris. He's 3/4 of the way dead, no psychic phases, things are just not looking very good right now for the Shrieking Masquerade. So from there we go directly to the shooting phase, and what ended up happening in this photo is that Naxos Face Slayer just tried to open up with a supercharged plasma shot from his plasma gun directly into Leorvine Ukris, which is the Master Executioner on this one. Unfortunately though, when he rolled a hit though, he rolled a 1, and as the rule states, whenever you roll a 1 for that one, for the firing supercharge, ends up happening that you immediately go out of action because your plasma gun explodes. As you can see here, Naxos Face Slayer learned the hard way and goes directly out of action on that one as well. Which I guess the moral of the story is never, ever ever shoot supercharged plasma. It's really not that necessary. Alright, so from there we go directly to the combat phase. You can see we actually have a pretty mixed result for the 15 Fangs as well as the Shrieking Masquerade. First of all, one of the members of the Shrieking Masquerade does get into put out of action. That is Zicker Canislar. He is the champion, not the champion, the heavy who is armed with a heavy bolter. He goes directly out of action as well. And as you can see here, Inzel the Night Reaper just kind of follows through after that and goes directly into the back of Zandiar the Black and engages him in close combat as well. Not to mention the champion for this unit as well, Zadu Vorlas, the Sparring champion, managed to put the hurt directly onto the Gaze of Death, which is the Bloodletter icon bearer. Managed to curve that guy, stomp that guy into the ground with his power fist and turns his direction directly over to Onyx Rider and engage him in close combat for the next turn as well. So things are looking kind of like a mixed bag so far on the top here for the combat phase. Unfortunately for Fabian, the Chaos Cultist, he goes out of action because Conoric Thaxos has no tolerance for Chaos Cultists, using his Berserker powers in order to kill that guy. Unfortunately, though, he also gets taken out of action by the two possessed. Ashrock the Mad and Telos the Perfect both knock off a wound on that guy, so basically put him out of action and also kill him as well. Telos the Perfect does follow through and goes directly into Lyrak Core, the Corn Destroyer, and Ashrock the Mad also kind of follows through in order to help him out as well. And that pretty much makes up the combat phase for this one. So we skip the morale phase because nothing much is going on. However, because the Corn Berserker, the Corn Bloodletters are more possession of the objective than the members of the Shrieking Masquerade, they do manage to use up 2 command points to destroy that very first objective, knock the very first objective off for the 15 Fangs on this scenario. So that being said, that takes us directly to the end of turn number 1. So here's an overhead shot of the entirety of the battlefield. As you can see, all kinds of chaos is taking place up here in the top of this half of the Shrieking Masquerade's deployment area. Same thing in the bottom half as well. Leorvard Ugr just kind of cleared off the entire bottom flank there, and basically he's going to be going charging directly into Telemach and Lyris. At the same time, the Possessed are still kind of a threat because they're kind of running around attacking people in the bottom. At the same time, you have to worry about both K-Fax as well as Trestle making their way directly into the 15 Fangs' territory. So that being said, we go directly to the top of turn number 2, and both of these kill teams roll off for initiative to see who will be going first. Alright, so that goes directly to the top of turn number 2 for the World Eaters, once again getting the initiative on this one, and once again the charges go off. All kinds of craziness end up happening. For the first part, first of all, both members of the guys of the Berserkers on the top of the roof, that is Leovine Ukris, he goes charged directly into Tillamak and Lyris. So because the two commanders will be engaged in close combat, Tillamak and Lyris only has 1 wound left. He's going up against a Master Executioner, so things are not looking very good for him. At the same time, Lyrak Core, he decides to stick in close combat with Telos the Perfect. At the same time, Garax the Bircher decides to jump off the roof of the building, go directly into Ashrock the Mad, and engages him in close combat as well. Now, while that's occurring, of course, Onyx Rider decides to charge directly into one of them. Sorry, not Onyx Rider. Rage Reaver decides to charge directly into one of the Chaos Cultists. He decides to go directly into K-Fax. At the same time, the Skull Collector also charges directly into Trestle, engaging both those guys in close combat to prevent them from getting to the objective marker. And everybody else is engaged in close combat and pretty much stays where they're at for right now. So here's a close-up of the center of the battlefield with Lyrak Core charging directly into the back of K-Fax, engaging that guy in close combat, as well as a Skull Collector going directly into Trestle to stop those guys from actually getting to the objective marker in the 15 Fangs' territory. And here's a close-up of the ongoing combat between Zadu Vorlas as well as Zandiar the Black against the 3 Bloodletters that are still right now in their midst, so that'll be kind of interesting to see exactly how that plays out. And here's a close-up of Garax the Butcher charging directly into Telos the Perfect, as well as Ugrivian the Destroyer going directly into Ashrock the Mad. I'm really excited to see how that combat works out with Corn Berserkers versus Possessed. It should be very entertaining, to say the least. And finally, here is a close-up of the Leovine Ukris going directly into Telemach and Lyris. And with that pretty much is the move phase. So the move phase over with, you go directly to the Psychic phase. And in the Psychic phase, it pretty much was a mixed result so much for the Shrieking Masquerade. Once again, Telemach and Lyris is unable to cast off Cursed Earth, so because of that, he fails to get that spell off, so because of that, none of the Possessed get any of their buffs for that turn. However, he can cast 2 Psychic powers per turn, so then his second power, he decides to cast Psychic Bolt, which goes directly into Leovine Ukris, takes off a mortal wound for that one. So because of that, he is now 1 point less, but at the same time, though, he's got Wounds of Spear, and Leovine Ukris is a beast at close combat. So with the move phase over with, we skip shooting because everybody's engaged in close combat, and we go directly to the combat phase. Over here in the top of the screen, the Night Reaper, Enzel the Night Reaper. He managed to put Zandiar the Black out of action. Because of that, both he as well as Raid Reaver charge directly into Vorlas Zaydu Vorlas, and engages in close combat. Zaydu Vorlas, however, is able to take out Onyx Rider no problem, so because of that, he managed to smash that guy with his Power Fist, so now this guy is staring down 2 different Bloodletters in close combat. Meanwhile, over here, Lyrac Core as well as the Skull Collector have no problem whatsoever taking out K-Fax as well as Trestle, putting both those guys directly out of action. The Bone Collector smashed that dude's head in with a horn, and Lyrac Core smashed the other guy's head in with a mace. So that part looked really awesome. And combat here in the middle between the Khorne Berserker as well as the Possessed is actually kind of interesting. What's his name? Grieving the Destroyer had no problem whatsoever taking on Ashrok the Mad. Managed to put that guy directly out of action, then follows suit in order to engage Telos the Perfect. Telos the Perfect as well as Garax the Butcher also go at it, but unfortunately neither one of them was able to knock off the other in terms of close combat. And to make matters worse, Garax the Butcher can fight twice in the fight phase. He gets to fight back again after he gets some with all the charge results. And unfortunately for him, he just failed his rolls once again, and not much really happens there. So because of that, they're now engaged in a pincer attack for both Ugrivian as well as Garax the Butcher against Telos the Perfect. And finally, the close combat between Leovar and Ukris as well as Telemac and Lyris was completely one-sided. Leovar and Ukris just put the hurt directly onto Telemac and Lyris and managed to kill that leader no problem without even breaking a sweat for that most part. And that pretty much makes up turn number 2 for this one. At this point, I decided to call the game at this point with the World Eaters managed to get a securing the win on this one. And the reason why is because there's no way that Shrieking Masquerade will be able to recomp their losses and pull out a victory on this one. So this one goes directly to the World Eaters. So that being said, we're going to go directly to the After Action Report because this battle report is now officially over. Alright, now it's time for the After Action Report. This is part of the battle report we talk about what went well, what went poorly, and what we can learn for the next time that we do battle. This is the After Action Report for the Quarantine Chronicles Kill Team Battle Report number 6, and this one ended up being a victory for the World Eaters. And the reason why this one ended up going so quickly is because all the 5s and 6s that I didn't roll during this entire mini campaign finally manifested in this very last battle. The World Eaters were rolling high like they couldn't lose whatsoever. All kinds of 5s and 6s were coming up from them for the most part, which is absolutely hilarious. For example, we got 4 charges off in the very first turn of the battlefield because these guys just basically just sprinted across the battlefield with 11s and 12s, engaging people in close combat, which is absolutely insane as well. Not to mention that body slam being pulled off by Leovar and Ukris on those 3 Chaos Cultists, rolling 3 6s and putting all 3 guys out of action. That was just insane. Just collapsed that entire flank just by his lonesome with that body slam technique that he used. That part was pretty epic as well. Not only that, but Bloodletters. Bloodletters actually finally stepped up this game. I had my doubts about them the last time I used them in the battle report for the World Eaters, but they held themselves pretty well against some Chaos Space Marines, so that part was pretty kind of interesting. Kind of took me by surprise, and not going to discount those guys anytime soon as well. At the same time, Perils the Warp was extremely dangerous. I feel bad for Telemac and Lyris actually suffering 3 mortal wounds in the very first opening turn of the game with his psychic power. So that part was was just purely tragic for that guy. Like I said, double 6s, right? So all the 5 6s that were missing in the earlier part of the game, they finally show up now, which is absolutely good, which is actually kind of crazy on that part. At the same time, I was also surprised how well the Chaos Space Marines actually did against the Bloodletters. Usually they weren't doing so well, and this time around though, not so much. It was kind of sad because usually Emperor's Children are pretty deadly because they got that flawless perfection ability, which means they always get to attack because they act like they charged. But not this time though. They just wasn't really kind of lackluster for the most part on this one. So here's our current standing right now for our campaign. So we're now done with all 3 rounds of our campaign for all 6 normal games. Currently in first place is the Kashan Han of the Thousand Suns with 3 wins and 0 losses. In second place is the 15 Fangs, the World Eaters, with 2 wins as well as 1 loss. Third place is the Cradle of Filth, the Death Guard, with 1 win as well as 2 losses. And for fourth place, we have the Shrieking Masquerade, the Emperor's Children, with 0 wins as well as 3 losses. So we're all done with all 6 normal games. We have 1 more game, which is a championship fight, and this championship is going to be a battle royale. All 4 kill teams will face off against each other in one giant battle to see which of them will be the current reigning champion of the Quarantine Chronicles. So that's going to do it for this week, guys. As always, please feel free to like, comment, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is always appreciated. Also, check us out on Facebook, Instagram, as well as blogger.com for all the latest, greatest hobby news related to this channel. That's going to do it for this one, you guys. We will catch you guys in the next one. Peace out and stay classy.